This is the Practical Mystics podcast, where we have modern spiritual conversations about the mess, the magic, and everything in between. I'm Shannon Havel.
And I'm Kimberly Crawford. And today on episode 7, we are going to talk about how to get those ideas out of your head and into the world.
Mm,
And we're excited to dive in. Um,
yeah,
my goodness, I think both of us are, as you would say, idea generators. And we have more ideas that pop out of our heads and our hearts than we could possibly activate in one lifetime. And I don't think that we're alone. I think that there are quite a few others that probably fit that bill. What do you think?
I think so too.
Yeah.
And one of the things my team just told me is ideas, when you're connected to your higher self and the collective field of consciousness, you're kind of tuned in to the ideas that hit the field. So maybe we can talk about that for a second.
That's awesome. Yeah. Frequency is everything. Absolutely. And also the fact that I think we might mention this before ideas are not monogamous. And once you hit that frequency, there are other people that are on that bandwidth and they're trying to get close and woo them as well. So that's where we have possibly seen our ideas actioned in other places. And you're like, what? You know,
Yes, yes. In fact, my brother and I were talking about an idea. We were having a family gathering, and there were a couple people missing. And he was like, "Well, maybe we can like create something where they can send us a picture and insert it." And I was like, "Maybe that already exists." So we both went and looked, and it does. So
really.
there's a lot of times where a solution to something comes up, and nowadays you just do a search, and sometimes
And
it's already there.
wow.
Not to
Well,
say that someone might not be able to improve on an idea. So
sure.
that's something too.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's popping in is, and I think we might have mentioned this when we talked about creativity, but in the telepathy tapes, episode 3 of season 2, there's a
Okay.
great conversation about creativity and how ideas come to people. And there was a lot of talk around how ideas will hit the field and the field of the collective consciousness. And to your point, they're not monogamous. So the idea from the universe, kind of like the way I see it in my mind's eye, is it was like this idea gets dropped into the field and it kind of just like goes out, and whoever is attuned to that, might catch the idea. And Rick Rubin said something about you can have one script for a movie and give it to 5 different people, and you'll end up with 5 different movies. And
Uh,
so maybe we can first talk about like where might ideas be coming from, rather than in the past, the perception might have been they come from the mind. But from my perspective, the mind is a limited resource. It'd be like going to your computer and asking uh, for help with an idea versus, logging on to the internet, and, you've got a limited resource based on whatever's in your computer versus accessing all the information that's out
right.
there on the
Right.
internet.
Right. Right.
Um,
Like getting onto the World Wide Web and you're like, what? I've got so
yeah,
many, it's the perspectives. Well, I think in the past we thought the brain was a isolated, like we're a robot and it's the dashboard to our body and it's the thing that is making everything happen. Whereas I look at the brain as a transponder and it's receiving information and not only from our heart going up, but from source coming in and from our higher selves and infinite selves coming in. And it's just disseminating the information. So I believe once you're at that frequency level, you have access and you're pulling it down and in versus it's like blooming and creating from little seeds that pop up within that brain. What do
yeah,
you think?
yeah. I agree with that. I think we're at a time where we're learning. the power of the brain, but also the limitations of the brain and where um, ideas and creativity actually come from. Well, I say actually, the
Potentially.
potentially, because I think ideas can come from the brain. So if you're like an expert in something, let's just say you're a mechanic or, and you're working on tinkering with something.
Sure.
And in the process of doing something, an idea comes from your mind,
Right.
maybe, I don't know,
Yeah.
whereas, or it might be coming from outside your mind and but I think there's a couple of elements to creativity and ideas. But I think expanding our perception of where ideas come from
Yeah.
uh, is an opportunity. And
Yeah.
then the other piece of it is like, what do we do with these ideas when they come to us? So, as you mentioned, like we both have a couple decades of ideas in abundance with, uh,
Yeah.
perceived limitations on what we could do with them. Let's just put it that way. Um, and so, like, what has been your experience with if you have an idea that comes through, what's your experience with like moving forward versus not moving forward?
Yeah. That's a great question. Thank you. I would say that it bubbles up and I have so many. And if I'm super excited, then I start to flesh out the idea. And I will get maybe it depends on how excited I am, depending on how far I get. And sometimes I'll actually build out the entire thing, like building this healing house, right? Or building the school, but then there are but that usually entails having other people to hold on to the managerial concepts of things, because I am not one who's gonna manage something. I'm all about, like, the combustible, like, "Huzzah!
Right.
Bam! And sodas," you know? And then I'm like, "Alright, that's great," and then I'm off to do the thing. So if
Same here.
yeah, right? And I have a hard time, what my husband would say is follow through. So sometimes I have all these half-baked ideas that are either no longer of interest or they're no longer in alignment. I find that to be true too, is I'll be like in something and then all of a sudden I learn what I need and I don't need to finish the thing because
That's
I've
a
got,
really good point.
I've gotten what I needed out of it. So it's just like, but I bought all of this stuff for, and it's just like, and yeah, it looks half done, but it's fully completed for me.
So say more about that because I think I know I have had this where I might go through the same process and then I have self judgment about not finishing it or
Yeah,
not even finishing the idea because I get to a point where sometimes I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to manage that. So I just kind of shut it down, like send that to someone else who might, do
sure.
all the things.
Well, now
Um,
do you shut it down because you're like, "I'm not interested anymore," or do you feel complete with like, "Oh, all right, like, I'm good. I'm literally good. I don't need to see the end of that movie."
Yeah, I think let's talk about that for a minute because I've had, for sure, I've shut it down just because I'm like, gonna, I'm not gonna do all the things to
Yeah,
create that, or if I did create it, I'm not gonna manage it. And so it probably wasn't an idea that I loved enough to even do the creation and then hand it off.
yeah,
I always said, like, if I could create a business of, make money off of creating ideas and then not
yeah.
having to do anything with them, that'd be
1-800 call
great.
Shannon. She's
Yeah.
brimming with them. She's an idea factory.
So, yeah, let's talk about that. Like, I think people probably have an experience, our listeners have
Mhm.
an experience of shutting something down or feeling like they didn't follow through. But what you brought up, I think, is a really good spin to talk about and then invite people to like reevaluate their experience of some of these experiences they might have had,
Yeah.
and create a different relationship to it. And this be a great way of getting rid of judgment and all the other things that might be lingering. So tell me more about an experience where you had an idea that you came to the conclusion of it and felt complete.
Goodness. Off the top of my head, what comes to me more is a client that I was working with, and she bought a lot of it's like she went to Michael's and like bought every creative decoupage, kit. And she just wanted to be able to like kind of piece things together from other places, right? And like build this furniture, build these art pieces. And she did this for a little while and then was done. And it was just kind of like, but I have all of these things still that I have not completed, and I've wasted all of this money. And it's just going to be yet another thing that was not done that people are going to look at me and go, you wasted hundreds of dollars at Michael's, and you didn't finish this thing. In reality, she is a person who can access multi dimensions, and she needed to figure out how to build bridges by these pieces of art that she was turning into her own thing.
Mm.
And it was like once she had the physical patterning of like identifying what was important for her to build and blend in, she didn't need to keep repeating that. It's like once you learn your multiplication tables, I actually had this conversation with my third grade teacher. You go through your ones and you get like the check off. You go through the twos and you get your star. And then, then you get into your sevens, and it's like you understand that 3 and 7, you did that before in the threes, right? But like and only 7, 8, 9, and 10, 11, 12 are new for you, right? Really. Um, and so I left all of that blank, all of the 1 through 6. So I it took more time to like not fill those out 1 times 6 or whatever and only do the sevens and above because you're having to piece this out. But I'm trying to decide, what I've learned. And she's like, Kim, why didn't you fill out your test? I'm like, because if you know I know it and I know it, why do I have to repeat the pattern? And she was you know, like you're in third grade, just fill up the stupid test, kid. But that was what my client did. It's like she went through understanding the pattern, and then why keep doing your multiplication tables when you know the thing? Now you go and execute it on a bigger scale, and you take that skill and push it out into a different plane. That's the whole reason why she was practicing it in the first place. You have to keep practicing it. When you got it, you take that and then you bring it to the next level of alchemy that was the whole reason why you were introduced to the concept in the first place.
I think that's great to point out that sometimes we get ideas that are that have come to us to teach us something, and once we've learned it, like you said, you don't need to keep repeating it. Versus an idea that comes to us that might be a new thing that we're going to do. Like a furniture maker, right? If you totally love making furniture, then maybe you do keep doing that thing and you get better at it and you hone in your skill and then become a, expert furniture maker. Versus what you just described is she had something that she needed to learn that was applicable to a totally different project. And I think that's a really great concept to share because it gives those of us who are working with our creativity and have ideas coming through, like every idea doesn't need to be completed to its end. Or even if we do get to the end of the first thing, if we don't take this on and do it as a job or a hobby or a whatever we're going to call it, that's not bad or wrong. And we're not like, we don't need to judge ourselves for the incomplete project, right?
Yes, yes. And there's a line that we've got to kind of explore with ourselves in regards to I believe like consistency and discipline and clear communication is the key to being able to get from the concept of our to desire to the completion of that experience in which that desire activated. At the same time, how we get there is different. Consistency, holding that desire as your attention, doesn't always mean you're going to finish the program of whatever. I know that we were talking about that earlier, right?
Yeah,
And I've bought programs and I'm like, I only needed to pop in for these few things. And in doing the whole thing actually wouldn't have been a great use of my time. I
right.
just needed those things and then I pop out. And if I need something else, I'll go back in. I'll go get
Yeah,
data or the wisdom and I'm good, because like life for me isn't as linear.
right.
So what about you? Has that happened to you?
It has. In fact, I was just thinking of, so I was shown this daily meditation that I've been doing for myself, and my husband does it with me. Um, and we were watching this program, and I can't remember what the topic was on, but the person did a meditation, and there was a piece of the meditation that was like a technical aspect, I guess, for lack of a better word, that during that listening to that meditation, my team said, "Add that to your meditation." And I
Mm,
was like, "Oh, okay." So I did. And so I've been doing the meditation with that piece in it. And and so I didn't finish watching the rest of this course. I don't know if it was even a full course, but whatever. Um, and I was told like that you were meant to watch that because we wanted you to see that one piece to add. And I was like, "Oh, okay, then I can feel complete and not leave this like hanging open guilt trip
right.
because I didn't finish that course." It was like
Right.
I've bought a lot of courses and some I didn't even do at all and some I've done parts of. I
Right.
have completed courses as well, but um yeah, so I think that's really great too, to talk about like leaving things, like taking what we need from an experience or a book or a video or whatever the thing is that we're guided to watch or do or listen to, isn't necessarily about having to do the entire thing.
Yeah.
And that's where when we're tuned in with our spirit team and our higher self, when we can listen to like, "Hey, you got the thing you needed from this. You don't have to finish it." How many minutes, hours, days can you save not doing something that you don't need to do?
100%. And it's all about internally being clear. I know we were talking about clarity. Um, if I dilute my focus and stray away from whatever that desire or intention is, my signal is going to get messed up and muddy. And it's going to be harder for me to get the experience that I'm wanting, yearning to have. And then I get caught up in the external judgment of like, I should finish this because so and so thinks it's the right thing to do, or I'm going to look like I am lazy or a flake or whatever. But that is a great barometer for me is like, is this getting me closer to my intention or farther away from my intention? And
Yeah,
if I'm able to get closer to my intention and I don't have to finish the thing and I've gotten what I've gotten, then great. Then I keep moving on. If I need to go through the whole thing because, you know, that's the discipline that needs to be activated in order to get through the experience that I'm calling in, then I need to stick around and freaking finish it.
right, right. And that's a really good point. It's not always one way or the other. And when I think something that stuck out for me in what you just said was these belief systems that we may have grown up with, like you should finish everything. or, whatever
Finish your plate
voice.
even, or
Yeah, yeah. Or
like,
if you
"But I'm
started,
full." Like, I really don't need any more nutrition. I'm good.
yeah, or if you start something and you find like, hey, that's not for me. Um, why do I need to keep doing this thing, right? And so, look inward and listen to the dialogue that's going on in your head around some of this stuff. And
Yeah,
it's going to give you clues of like, is that a program that I was instilled with from either growing up, or is it a cultural thing, or it's just some belief system that you have and who knows where it came from? Is it serving you in this particular situation? And then call bullshit on it, right? Like if you kind of in your heart like, yeah, I don't need to finish the thing, and then you hear this little voice going in your head, but but you are supposed to finish everything you start, or whatever the little voice is saying to you. Just call bullshit on it, right? Because our mind gets these things stuck in it, um that may or may not be applicable to us. Maybe it worked in the past, maybe it was valuable in the past, but in this moment it's not. So we get to say like, yeah, this time that's not the way I'm choosing to proceed.
absolutely. Well, in our minds, they want a job. So that's where the ego is coming in and giving us all this judgments or bias, or like you're saying, all the programming. And I like to tell my brain, like what I call it my monkey mind, you know, thanks for sharing. And it's just like, so then it's like, but I was like, thanks for sharing. I'm going to keep going this way. But it just validated that I heard you, and I'm going to keep on moving,
Yeah.
So I don't feel like I'm repressing or shutting something down, and it's got its voice, but I stay on my path. So
Yeah.
that seems to be more helpful. When I don't do that, I end up, it's kind of looping. And like the loop is I want to go forward, but I loop back because that belief or program pulls me back into doing it the old way.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like spiraling down and then spiraling up and spiraling down, spiraling up, and I'm like kind of like stuck in that diagonal.
That's a really good visual.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other uh, way that I'm being shown to uh, describe this is, if you're on a path headed towards something and you get like a little like side tour, maybe you're trying to develop something, and you get a little side tour like, hey, go learn this thing, which may or may not seem related to what you're doing. Go do that thing. And it might be one of the situations that you described earlier, with your friend. Like she had to learn something that was meaningful to this other bigger project, and it
Yes.
didn't look related to the other project. Um, you go learn that thing, take what you need, and
Yeah.
then get back on track with your, like go back onto your original path and proceed with whatever you've learned. And if we don't listen to our prompts, like you learned what you needed to finish here and get back on track, now we are not only wasting energy, but we might be wasting time. We might be missing opportunities that if we had listened to our guidance to say, like, okay, you're done with that, get back on your track. And now maybe we got a different instruction to do something or meet someone. Well, if we're busy over here doing the thing just because we feel like we have to complete it, now we have missed some of the timing of these other things we were being guided to do.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that. And then the power of synchronicities at play. I hear you're saying don't be afraid to pivot when you feel like you're full and you're ready to resume resume walking the path. And I
Yeah,
also hear you saying that uh, trusting the intuition, trusting the perceived divine directions that you're getting, and moving forward, with that, with
yeah,
confidence. Yeah,
yeah.
beautiful.
And sometimes we just need space from the thing we're working on or the idea. Um, I have spent a lot of my career being in the accounting profession. Um, and sometimes, so there was a time when I was doing like auditing type of stuff,
Okay.
and I'd get stuck on like something didn't look right, but I didn't know where to go from there. And so I had to step away. And then maybe like on my drive home, something pinged into my head and I was like, oh, okay. Or I'd be doing the dishes and it would ping into my head like, oh, okay. And then I would know the next step. And so I think that the same thing can happen when we're working with an idea. If we kind of get stuck, then maybe we just need to step away from it for, I don't know, a few minutes, hours, days, whatever. And and if maybe we're guided to go on a walk in nature, not because we're going to get some epiphany about our idea, but just like decompressing in the trees and in nature, kind of like clears the channels and gets all the information overload that's stuck in there and, kind of like makes space for some of these newer pieces of the idea to come in.
I love that. What you're talking about is literally changing brain states. So
Mm.
when you're talking about the accounting, your brain is probably in like a beta state of like crunching through all of the known information. And then when you step away, depending on what you're doing, if you're going into nature, like Einstein would play the violin,
Ah,
and that would pull him into an alpha state. Right? So he's in this beautiful, open, clear alpha state for creativity to receive, his divine guidance. And then that's where, poof, that alignment or your perception changes because you're on a different frequency. So then you get access to all the
yeah.
things that were on that frequency that weren't on this frequency, the higher versus the lower uh,
Yeah.
wave.
And and that's a great way of explaining how, like, if we're stuck in our mind, which is a limited resource, versus tapping into, the field of consciousness and divine inspiration and creativity.
Yes.
um, those are different frequencies, different states, different places to access information.
Mhm.
And there was something else that you said that prompted an idea, and I can't remember what it was. So
It'll
we'll
come
move
back to
on.
you.
But yeah. Oh, play.
Yes.
Play and joy. So
Mm,
even if you're working on an idea, that isn't like playful, maybe you're creating the next invention to solve a world problem.
okay.
Um, but having time in our life for play or even taking a break, like we talked about stepping away from something, going and play. If you like to dance, go dance. If you like to go out in nature, go in nature. If you're somebody who do something creative, because what can happen, I think, well, this is what I'm being shown anyway. If we're working on an idea, we can get stuck in that linear mindset.
Yes.
And if we go play, that opens us up to that collective consciousness, creativity that we're now tapping into, which allows us to bring in some fresh ideas or solutions that might not have been accessible before. And so if play seems like, or creativity that's not related to the thing you're working on seems like an irresponsible choice, um, I'm calling bullshit on that too. And I say, like, go do the play thing. And this is something I'm just learning because what my team showed me pretty recently actually was most of my life. So when I was younger, I was very creative. I loved art and I still do.
Sure.
Just don't haven't done a lot of it. And one of the things my team was showing me was the mindset that I've had around creativity. It was like, if something, if I didn't see the ROI, the return on investment of the time to do the thing, then I didn't make time for it. And I was like, oh, think of all the fun I've missed out on. Think of all the creative projects I could have done, not because there was an ROI attached to it, but because it was fun or it might have, opened up something else.
Yes.
Um, and I think it was in that episode of Telepathy Tapes on Creativity where Martha Beck, I think it was Martha Beck.
Hmm.
I may not be getting all the names right. Anyway, she talked about her experiment that she did on how creativity kills depression.
Mm,
And I've mentioned in an episode that I've dealt with some of that
yes.
over my life. And so I was like, oh, all those ideas of like go do something fun and creative was my higher self and my team telling me like, hey, here's a solution to what you're dealing with right now. And in my mind, I was like, oh, but what's the ROI on that? And so I don't have time for that thing. And
Yes.
it's like all that bullshit going
Bullshit, shenanigans. Like
on.
it's supposed to feel bad because it's like your team's trying to tell you, "Hey, we don't want to. This is the wrong road." You know, your GPS is trying to get you to make a left bank left and pivot, and it's like it's getting worse and worse. And we're like, "No, we've got to keep slogging." You know, like
Yeah.
maybe it's simply telling you to find the fun and
Yeah.
and explore that and
Yeah.
be in that environment and see how long that depression lasts, right? Or
Yeah.
begins to dissipate. And I'm not making light of anybody in a serious depressive state that has the reasons we all go through, or some more than others. And it is a very significant moment in our lives when we are in that suck place. And if you can find one thing, whether it's a memory that you remember that you were joyful at one point, then that shows you that you can be again. And you hold on to that vibration for dear life and let that pull you towards something that has the same resonance. It could be that you are looking out the window and you find a flower beautiful, right? And that can pull you into helping your brain realize that's important to identify beautiful things and joyful things and fun things and follow the breadcrumbs of that
Yeah.
and let that lead you towards a more satisfying place to be.
Yeah. I love that.
Mm.
And the other thing is if you're feeling stuck, whatever the reasoning is for the stuckness, and you want to take on creativity as a tool for pulling you out, um, one of the elements of that experiment that Martha Beck did was she gave people a small, short art project. So, like, so that you have a win, like you have a beginning and an end that you feel like, hey, look what I created
Okay.
versus like taking on, some project that might take weeks or months or years to complete. And so that was one of the elements was, take on a small project. And so, if you're working on something and you're feeling stuck, then maybe go take on some unrelated creative project that is just small, like go draw a picture or get a coloring book. They have adult coloring books now. In fact, we
Fine. I'll tell you, they run the gamut out there.
they do. My husband and I went to a holiday party this past Christmas, and it was one of those gift exchange things where you bring something, and our gift was like a bag of miscellaneous fun things, and one of them was a mullet coloring book. So it had all of these. It had all of these pictures of people with different style mullets. It's a
Wait,
coloring book. And I was
that's
like,
awesome.
so also, that is a great example of if you have an idea and you're just like, oh, who's going to buy this? Somebody bought a mullet coloring book and gave it as a gift. So don't underestimate your idea.
Oh my gosh. Well, okay, so that's a great segue into your beautiful mind and your exploration with AI. And you found some tools that help us ship those ideas and bring them into creation. Tell us more about that, Shannon.
Okay, so first, I just want to acknowledge AI is a very, let's say, hot topic. In that hot, as in a lot of people are talking about it, and hot as in can create some division on
Sure.
people's perspective of it.
Yeah.
Um, so one of the things, so my husband's using has been using AI for a lot of different things, but uh, taking like large amounts of content. So maybe there was a meeting and he crunch it down and pull out the topics. And and one of the things that I was sharing with him is I get stuck in translation between an idea that is super clear out in my mind's eye and out in the imagination world, I guess we can call it. And then like bringing it into a physical form, whether it's a training course or a book or whatever the thing is. And so that's a lot of times where I get stuck. And so one of the things he showed me was how I could record all of my ideas and thoughts on a thing and then use AI to take that transcript and like summarize it, pull out the whatever the prompt is that you want to extract. And honestly, in the matter of I think 2 hours, and one of those hours was me recording, he took a transcript and created um an outline for the program I wanted to create, uh X number of episodes for a podcast. I mean, it had like a workbook. So many things would have taken me. I didn't create it, right? Because it was stuck in my head. So it would have taken me never to get it out there.
Never.
And so that like broke open the possibility of how I can use AI as a bridge between the unmanifest and manifest.
Mm,
And I know for a lot of creators out there, there's concerns about, how AI is going to change music and art and all of those things. Valid conversations for sure. But what these experiences did for me was one, it took me out of fear of using AI. But the other thing it did was opened up the idea of how can I use my own creativity and ideas and leverage this tool to help bridge that gap where I was getting lost in translation. And then, you take whatever AI gives you and then you review it and you put yourself into it and make sure it has your tone and your voice and is communicating what you want to communicate. And so we're not just like handing over all of our creativity to an AI bot.
right.
Um, but it's also a tool that might be useful in helping us get something out of our head and into a form that will allow us to take the next step. And
Awesome.
maybe that's helping us have clarity on our own idea and providing some outlines and structures that we can take and run with. Or maybe it's, we were talking earlier about some ideas that you and I were, you know, swirling around on and
Yeah.
getting excited about. And maybe this helps you get an idea. You mentioned like a movie script I can't remember exactly, but I was like, so how about like getting it out of our head and then putting it into an AI tool that could format it in a way that the idea is now in a manuscript form that you could share with someone.
Right.
And the possibility that I'm seeing is not only getting ideas out of my head and into form, but
Hmm.
also like what used to potentially take someone days, months, years, never can
Right.
now happen in a shorter period of time. So if you're somebody like you and I who have a gajillion ideas and maybe we like a lot of them, like now instead of it being 2 decades of a closet full of ideas or a head full of ideas,
Sure. Yeah.
um, now we can actually like get some of those ideas out into the world where they're making a difference for people rather than just being stuck inside of us
Yes.
or die on the vine.
Right.
or have somebody else do the idea because we talked about ideas are not monogamous. So when an idea hits the field, it's gonna like whoever
Populate. Yep.
is tuned
Repopulate
in
with whoever's, yeah.
to make that
Whoever,
happen. They're the
yeah.
ones that you're gonna see presenting the idea to the world. And you're gonna be like, damn, that
Yeah.
was a good idea. Too bad I didn't do anything with it.
That's true. Well, and then for those that do say that, that still feel compelled to do the thing, I would say that it's all about our perception or perspective, and our perspective makes what we create unique. And that's one of the reasons why we're here. And source is we've got as fragments of us, and the way that you will make something, I'll make something a little bit different. And both are absolutely wonderful and worthy of moving forward with if the desire is there. What I hear you saying is tech is allowing you to release the blocks of maybe not knowing how to do the specifics and allowing you to utilize their recipe in order to build the things where you get lost in like the minutia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's take this podcast, for example. So I was prompted to start a podcast, uh, and you were prompted to start a podcast. And I don't know what your process went like, but mine went like, first of all, I was like, what the fuck? You want
Yeah.
me, who's been in the background of life, to be on a podcast?
Right.
But the second piece of it was I wasn't interested in doing all the minutia editing because I had taken a training course on how to do all that for social media, which I never pursued because I'm like, I just don't like that work. The minutia of like looking at all the seconds and you got to clip it here and clip it there and then hope that you didn't clip it in the wrong spot. And like that was crazy making for me, for one. Two, I don't, and now currently don't have the time to do that. And so, I had all of these things that I was talking to my spirit team about. I was like, I don't want to do this and I don't want to do that. And then my brother tells me about Riverside FM, which is what we're using to produce this podcast.
Yeah.
Um, so there are AI tools built into Riverside that help. Like we can edit a video by looking at the transcript and deleting words. And it clips the video and the audio and the transcript.
Magic.
And when I saw that, I was like,
Done.
and then it does a whole bunch of other stuff,
Hmm.
including there's just a whole bunch of things that are done. They call them magic episodes, and they are magic because they do a lot of like some of you could set it to take out the ums and other stuff if you choose to. And that would be really time consuming to have to go through an entire podcast that's 30 minutes, 2 hours long. And so, honestly, if it weren't for the tools that we're using, we might still not be doing a podcast.
Every reason to believe that would be true. Because for me, it was all about the technology and getting hung up on how do you move things from one platform to another platform and all of the details of, okay, now I have to edit this. Yeah, no thanks.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be authentic and get it out there and get help and not have to learn all the individual aspects of all the things in order to create the product that would be of service to somebody. So then I had that
Yeah.
guilt of like, oh, I've got directions and I'm being told to do the thing, but I don't know how to do the thing enough. And it's going to take me like 3 years to figure this all out. And then technology is going to change on me and I'm still going to be outdated and chasing this and like, meh. Yeah.
True. Yeah.
I'll do
And
something.
right now, so we'll just put it out there. Like our dream is to have a production team help us because
Yes, yes,
they
yes.
know how to do all this stuff
Come
and,
on
you
down.
know, do all the magic that helps people find us better and all that stuff.
Right.
And we're going through the learning lessons of it as we attract the means by which we get a production team to help with this and allow us to grow and do other cool stuff. Um, but in the meantime, the technology allowed us to get started
Right.
and move forward with our idea. And for those who have been listening from the very beginning of episode, I think we called it the debut episode.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, we're learning a lot, and we're learning in front of all of you because
And
we
you're
chose to be
welcome.
vulnerable that way.
Right? I hope we figured out the sound stuff for you guys, and
Yes, I think
we haven't
that was
blasted
pretty
you
bad at
guys
the
out,
beginning.
right? But
Yeah.
what the reason why we're sharing all of these stories is because we know that we have our community out there, we've got friends out there, and we're sharing our personal stories to help them take a a more beautiful conscious risk to try the thing and be unapologetic about your desire because you have tools to support you in doing whatever that may be. So get clear on what you want and start to dive in with conscious intention to build for the greater good for yourself and for the greater good of all that is out there. And when you are clear in that frequency and you go into building, then you build beautiful things. And as you get stuck, then ask the AI how to get unstuck, and because
Yeah.
it's not going to judge you. God, it's like your nicest friend. They're like, what a fabulous idea. Like it may not have been that fabulous, but it sure makes me feel that way. I'm like, thanks. I'll take it. Yes, it is.
We need to be careful to not create a feedback loop that is just,
Right.
not
Like,
helpful
yeah,
either, right? Like
yeah, right.
validating our own thoughts that may or may not be
Right. My ego's
accurate.
like, ah.
Right. Right. Hey, it's great for us, but is it going to reach the people that we want to reach it? So,
Yeah, for
that's
sure.
another thing to be mindful of as we're creating these tools, kind of like social media has done, right? Like you get in these silos of validating what you already believe instead of expanding into
Right,
things that
right, right.
you know, may challenge what you believe and open up some new possibilities for you. So, I think there are definitely things to be mindful of.
For sure.
And I think there are good conversations happening around AI specifically that are important conversations. And I also think that, going into fear around anything is not something I would recommend. Um, and then also the, um, there was something else. Any thoughts you have? Because I just
Yeah,
lost the train left the
I
station without me.
I it's all good. I think that what helps mitigate the kind of the "I love me" loop is your intention for the greater good as well as yourself pulls you out of that loop where it's all about you, and realizing that we're dealing with a opportunity for convergence where if we're creating something, you and I, and then we feel like there's a race between another podcasters, and yet we have something that could help them, like siphoning and holding it for ourselves is actually not for the greater good, right? Sharing it and letting them know that there's the, hey, Riverside is much better than trying to slog and figure out 5 different tools. Uh,
Yeah.
and sharing that wisdom is is ethical and is what's going to raise us all up. And I know that we're dealing with that on a global scale where we feel like we are in races against different countries, where it's got to do with a tech race on technology and race on biology. And you've got epigenetics and people trying to figure out how to activate longevity in the human body. And we want to get it done first before somebody else does because of these super soldiers that we could create. And it's like, but if we all slowed our roll, and this is very idealistic, but if we had everybody come to a great round table and we all decided, hey, look, we're going to do what's in the greater good, and then build and share information and ideas with that in mind, then we would be raising humanity. And I can already hear my husband, who is a former Marine, going, there are people that fundamentally like will say that to your face and then turn around and go do the thing and then, you know,
Yeah.
blow everybody up. And I understand that, but we've got to get to the point where we take mitigated risks, right? And it's you just got to keep building bridges. And some of them are going to get blown up and you just keep building. It doesn't mean you stop, you just go into a different direction. And then you try to connect with those that are ready because not everybody's going to be ready for this grand utopia. That's why we're in a multi-dimensional experience, and some of us are going to be on a different reality level and some are going to be on a different, like, and one is not better than the other. If you are on one level and that's where you're at, then that's where you need to be at, right? And then there's no
Yeah.
judgment.
Yeah. Well, and the I think from the beginning of time, I guess the thing is that's coming to me is that the technology, whatever it is, isn't usually the problem. It's humanity. So if we go back to, the beginning of humanity, we didn't have nuclear weapons and AI tools. Well, anyway, that's a different conversation. But
We're like,
if we
oh,
just if we just go back to like the caveman, just we're going to keep this conversation simple. If we go back to the caveman times, they had rocks and clubs that they beat each other up with, right? And so it doesn't matter if it's a rock or a club uh, an AI tool. That the nature of humanity, there are going to be people that use it for good, and there are going to be people who use it for not good.
sure.
And I think that is where we get back to, like, how can we make a difference in the world of helping people connect to their heart, create more heart mind coherence so that we have higher ratios of people using tools for the benefit of all versus something different. And and so I would say, there was a conversation when AI started coming out, and there was an organization, and the conversation was like, do we allow some of our IP into the AI verse, if you will? And there was some fear around it, like, oh, what if people get our stuff? And the founder was like, wouldn't that be awesome? Because it's around spreading love. And, so it was like, wouldn't that be great if
Yes.
if that got out in the world, right? And so that's another way of thinking about it, is like, if you've got an idea, are you being like limited and fearful, or are you like, hey, yeah, let's let's get that out there, because that is going to benefit the whole and the collective to
Absolutely.
work together better and be better stewards of the earth and fellow human kind.
Right.
So yeah, so let's just be the people who use it for good.
Yeah.
And based on my understanding of AI, it's like, these are tools that can go out and access a shit ton of information way faster than we can do with our brain. And so what information is there that it's sourcing? So if we're not putting our high frequency information and our love and all of this creativity for how we can do better in all the ways of being a human being, if we're not putting that into these tools, then we're left with the other stuff.
Right.
And so that's why, my husband and I have started using um,
Yeah.
AI for some of our creative endeavors, because it's putting those high frequency thoughts and ideas and intentions into the sphere of information that AI can access. And I think from what I've seen, there are a lot of people doing that, which brings me hope.
Yes. And so what I hear you saying is, by you and your husband and all of us who are working towards a raising the collective consciousness that we are building what we hope to see in the world by participating in this,
Yeah.
versus opting out only is allowing a vacuum of the lack of the heart-centered and human forward, um, focus points, that
Yeah.
would be absent from that space, which is, important. I mean, a hammer can build a house, or a hammer can take someone out. It
Yeah.
can bust your knees, right?
Yeah.
So, but it's still a hammer.
Yeah.
It's just it can operate however the user wants to utilize it.
Yeah.
So, it's more of how are we going to be accountable and, effective human beings and accountable human beings with this tool,
Yeah.
and not giving the tool all of the ownership and accountability for being bad or good, but instead turning the accountability on ourselves, and also raising little humans that also can hold accountability and can hold reverence for themselves and realize that they are the source of creation, and they do that work first of the grit and resilience of showing up and hashing out the idea and being clear channels to be able to receive those ideas, and then showing up in and gaining momentum to move forward, and then activating the tools to help them expand and or get unstuck, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we can apply this to any tool, right? Like you can have a manual saw or you can have an electric saw. And if you're a furniture builder, maybe your furniture is with a handsaw because that is the artisan approach to your skill. Or maybe you choose that you want to produce more of the thing you're producing. And so a handsaw is not going to get you there. So you choose to use an electric saw. Both
Yeah.
things are okay. It's just like what is going to serve the intention of what you have going. And I was just reminded actually of when my husband and I first started exploring AI, we were blessed with having a friend introduce us to this guy who was using it. He created like Martin Luther King AI and Jesus AI. And so it's just sourcing information that's out available in the public domain. But you could go in and ask a question and it's going to answer your question from the
Perspective
the
of Jesus
perspective
or
of Jesus
hey,
or
no
Martin Luther
way.
King.
That's
Yeah.
all.
And he's such a beautiful soul and really encouraged us not be afraid of it and how to interact with it in a heart based way. Um, and so one of the things that he took me through as kind of an exercise on showing me what could be done, he was like, "Okay, think of a question or a problem you want to solve." And I was like, "All right, well, it's kind of random, but it's stuck in my head." So a long time ago, I was listening to it was actually Brendan Burchard. We were at a Brendan Burchard event. If
Okay.
anybody knows who he is, you just look him up. um,
Googleable.
he's he, he's been around a while. Um, anyway, he was telling a story about how he is from I think Montana. You not get all the details specifically correct, but and near his hometown is called, I guess they're called Superfund sites, where it's basically this huge pool of toxic water that is left from a mining endeavor in the past, copper or something like that. So they imagine this huge hole in the earth that is just has this toxic fluid sitting in it. And so my ideator just went crazy on that. I was like, "Oh, you should be able to clean that up. How do you clean it up?" Like I was imagining like a whole bunch of energy healers infusing energy of love into the water and having it transmute, right? And so anyway, of course, like that's a big ass idea. And
Yeah.
I'm not connected with anyone who does that kind of work. And so anyway, So for years, this has just been in my head.
Okay.
And so when I'm in this session learning about AI, that popped up. And I'm like, all right, well, here. And I just told them the story, the same I just explained. And so we asked AI, like, give me some ideas on how to clean up something like that. And it came up with a whole bunch of ideas and it named companies that did that type of work. I mean, it was talking about like using mushrooms to digest and transmute the
Oh,
toxicity. And
brilliant.
I was like, I never, literally never would have thought of that.
No.
And then he took it to the next step and
Okay.
he was like, not only did we ask it how to clean it up, but how could we like make the land flourish? And so I was like, well, I love Bouchard Gardens in British Columbia, Canada, which was an old quarry site. And the
It
owner of the
what?
quarry, yeah, his wife took the quarry and made it into this garden that exists today.
No way.
And so I was like, what if we did something like that? And so the AI tool did all of these, ideating and ways that that could happen. And at the end, he was like, can you create a picture that would represent you know, the
Yeah.
new idea? And it was
Yeah.
this beautiful, flourishing thing that in the background, you could see the old like structures, the stacks
Sure.
of
Sure.
I don't know all the right terms, um, but around it is like beautiful greenery and families walking on paths y- a- and it was like an eco tourist site.
Yeah.
And that was
Amazing.
the idea. And my mind was blown.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And then it even gave like companies you could contact that would maybe help with
Holy
that
smokes.
idea.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
So I mean, we could solve big ass problems by just asking some meaningful questions, getting a little assistance because, the tool went out into the AI sphere for I don't know what they actually call that. Um, and sourced all these resources that my brain would never have been able to do. And where my intuition and my higher self was coming in, it was like, hey, this is a problem. There's got to be a solution for it. Let's explore all the ways, right? Like without that creativity, there's nothing to interact with the tool on, and then no solution ever comes about. So it's about using our creativity and then leveraging tools.
Absolutely. Well, this is a perfect spot to offer the invitation to our community. If you're walking down and every day on your walk, you think about the park and how the park needs a bathroom, or if something in your life is a little bit of a pain point, or you could see it thriving and being so much better, but you just don't know where to start. I invite you to pick an AI engine and start playing and pop in your idea. But before you do that, take a nice deep breath, get into the heart coherence of why this is a desire for you. Have a really good feeling of clarity before you ask the question and start to engage. That's the work that I do before I ask my question. I get really clear and I get into my body fully versus just randomly typing a whole bunch of crap in. And I find that that makes a difference when it comes to prompts. And I also invite people to tell the AI what you want it to be for you, meaning you're the best photographer in America, or you're the best photographer for nature shots. And we're trying to figure out how to get more people to come to Lake Chabot or, Lake Havasu, and how would we go about creating these shots that would entice people to get out into nature? I don't know. But telling it what it is first before you tell it what to do will help it to operate better for you. Is that making sense? Am I saying that right?
Yeah. Yeah. Like the way so we've been working with this tool and one of the things that you did this morning was like, hey, the role we're asking you to play right now is a podcast production team.
Yes.
Tell us blah, 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 blah. Right. And so that's what I hear you saying is like, tell it what you're asking it to be for you as a collaborative
Partner.
uh,
Yeah.
partner in fleshing out your idea,
Right.
or what information do you currently want that you don't have resources for.
Right.
And another idea that came to me was like, we've heard of food deserts in neighborhoods and communities. And I was like, okay, so the obvious thing is like, well, how do you solve for that? Maybe you get a community garden or whatever the thing is. If you have ideas, but you just don't know all of the pieces, that's another way you could use these tools.
Yes.
Um, and phone a friend, because like for you and I, we often have similar ideas or questions that um, allow us to have like a couple of different perspectives to bring into an inquiry like this.
Yeah.
And so I really appreciate your invitation of like pick an idea and just have some fun and play with it. Um, and I also want to acknowledge like this, the intention of this podcast is not to promote AI because, whatever tools are available to you, explore. And how can you leverage um, technology or things like that that will help you forward your idea to get it out of your head and out into the world.
Yeah. I
And
love
I
that.
think,
I love that invitation, kind of like pivot where if you don't want to ask AI, and like Shannon's suggesting, like say you want to build community in your neighborhood, you don't know your neighbors. Maybe you pick the one next door or across the street and tell them your idea. And you ask them what things that they have in mind that they would like to see happen on the street in regards to maybe you guys all have the garage sale once a year or a potluck every 4th of July or, um, a book swap or whatever. And just connecting with another human being will create the internal AI system of right accessing the all there isness. And you're able to do the same thing.
yeah. In fact, what I just saw with those, the little how libraries that people have in front of their
Oh yeah,
house
yeah.
or on the
The little
corner.
little book
Like,
bin. Yeah.
yeah, like somebody started that. That was someone's idea. And I don't know if they got friends and did it in a couple different parts of a neighborhood, or if somebody just put one out and someone saw it and they're like, "Hey, I want to do that too."
Yes.
You never know how your idea is going to start to spread.
Yeah.
And so I guess the whole point of this is like take the next step with an idea that you have,
Yes.
because the world needs a lot of new ideas to solve for some of the big challenges that we have right now. And the solution, or part of the solution, might be yours to contribute.
Absolutely. I love that. And my people are saying that remind yourself that you are not a silo. And part of the potency is collaboration. So it's not just getting out there and sharing your idea, but how can you build a bridge to allow other people to onboard and expand on that idea? And that it's it's more important for us to build community and trust than it is to fuel the fear and feeling like we need to isolate in order to protect, because the protection is more in connection. It's not in isolation. That's
Mm,
old thinking.
mm, mm. Well, and also that points to when we can get, this is the word, overly indexed in our idea, or that's kind of not a very practical mystics term. So let's see, like when you get too attached to the way your idea has to be.
Yeah.
Now maybe you are somebody who has technical skills and there is specifics that have to go. Like if you're building a rocket, specifics are important,
Yeah,
right?
please keep the schematic.
But if you're not building a rocket and you're building something, you know, else, then if let me just put it this way. If your idea is stuck because you're attached to how it has to be or how you think it has to be or having it be your unique idea, and you're not doing anything with it, then maybe break out of that um, grip that might be happening with your idea. Loosen your grip and ask your team, like, what kind of thing could I do next to move my idea forward? And then if you get an answer, take the action.
I love that. So you're saying that they're the bottleneck? If you feel like you you can't go
Might
forward,
be.
you may be the bottleneck.
Yeah. Well, maybe not though, because it's just somebody else is going to do the idea. Because ideas that want to get out are going to find a human to participate because we are we're the conduit between the unmanifest world and the manifest world.
That's right.
We are the I just see like this we're like plugged into both sides, the earth and the pure potential
Field.
creative
Yeah,
energy of the universe, right? And so we're the vessel that it has to come through to get out into our physical realm that we can interact with. And so if you're being a bottleneck, that idea is probably not going to have your input because someone else is going to do it.
that's right. That's right. We're the birthing beings, and they're gonna go find another brain womb.
Well, that's a visual.
No, I almost spit out my water. Elizabeth Gilbert has this great story in her book. Oh, I can't think of what it is. I want to say it's like creative magic or something. And she was talking about having this idea for a story, and she had written a little outline, but it never uh went all the way. And she I think she remembers hugging and, like, kissing on the cheek a friend of hers, and she felt like a spark. You have to go into the book and, like, really get the story, but in summary, she feels like that idea transferred from her to her friend in that greeting, and I think a year or 2 later, her friend literally wrote that exact story idea that had come to Elizabeth Gilbert. And she's like absolutely convinced that it transferred, it hopped over to somebody else that had the space and time in order to manifest it. I was like,
Yeah.
wow, amazing.
She actually tells that whole story in that telepathy tapes season 2, episode 3 episode on creativity.
So that wasn't Martha Beck, it was Elizabeth Gilbert.
There were multiple people speaking on that, and so
Oh,
Elizabeth
they're
Gilbert was one of the people on that, creativity. So it was,
amazing.
Elizabeth Gilbert, Rick Rubin, and Martha Beck
You're kidding. What a
were
lineup.
all
Oh my
oh,
god.
it was I think Kai Dickens, who's the, creator of the podcast, and she is the voice you hear.
Yeah.
I think at the very beginning, she was like, "This is my favorite episode of season 2." So, and I will say I've listened to all of season 2 and I would agree with her.
Fantastic. I still haven't
Yeah.
checked it out, but I'm gonna. I love telepathy tapes, and I'm all about it.
Yeah, talk about a podcast that will open your mind to a whole bunch of things you likely have never thought of. Or if you have thought of them, it takes you deeper.
For
Um,
sure.
but yeah, that's a
Yeah,
great episode on
that's
creativity.
our second invitation. Please go check out the telepathy tapes, and we have no affiliation with them, but we just support what they're doing, and we think that it's a beautiful, um, a beautiful show.
Yeah, it's opening up a lot of minds, I think. And it's also providing connections and community for individuals and people, groups of people who have felt isolated in their gifts that didn't maybe appear as gifts, but it gives us a lot of opportunity to look at things differently. And
I
yeah,
would say that I owe them a a gratitude token of gratitude because it has definitely given me the courage and the confidence to say out loud to the world that, I'm psychic and a channel and can do these things on a public forum. Whereas before, even though I had a website, it was like, well, it's just on the fringe. And I'm not going to state that. But now here we are and not feeling like they're going to burn down our house and, have another Salem moment, thanks to her really changing the landscape of what is mm, out there and digestible and really changing the minds of people or opening up the opportunity for them to experience something new. I'll just put it that way versus changing
yeah,
mine. Yeah.
yeah. I'll second that gratitude because I think, and I hadn't thought about it until you just mentioned it, but maybe without having listened to the telepathy tapes, I might not have had the courage to start this podcast with you.
Yeah.
Because it really did like the success and um, spread, if you will, of that podcast to me said there are a lot of people craving these kinds of conversations. They want to have these conversations. Um, they want to hear about things that are not in their normal worldview or experience of life.
Right.
Um, and so we hope this podcast can also be one of those things in your life as well.
I hear you. We're sending a little love letter to you, Kai.
And her team,
Yes, for sure. You
her
can't do it
team.
alone.
Yes.
Yes,
W-
absolutely. Oh my goodness. So I think this is
It's
a
okay.
beautiful place to wrap it up.
Yeah.
And we want to thank everybody again for choosing to spend time with us and being a part of our community. And we really are excited about their awakening and them joining us on our journey as we move through life too.
Yeah, for sure.
So, at its core, Practical Mystics podcast is about remembering that spirituality isn't separate from life, it's woven into it.
We hope you'll continue to join us on the journey of curiosity and awakening.
Thank you.
Much love.